transgression of the wicked saith within my heart, that there is no fear of God before his eyes. For he flattereth himself in his own eyes, until his iniquity be found to be hateful. The words of his mouth are iniquity and deceit. He hath left off to be wise and to do good. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. Thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens, and thy faithfulness reacheth unto the clouds. Thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Thy judgments are a great deep. O Lord, thou preservest man in peace. How excellent is thy loving kindness, O God! Therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house, and thou shalt make them drink of the river of thy pleasures. For with thee is the fountain of life, in thy light shall we see light. O continue thy loving kindness unto them that know thee, and thy righteousness to the upright in heart. Let not the foot of the proud come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked remove me. There are the workers of iniquity fallen. They are cast down and shall not be able to rise. So, category first off. Which category do you believe Psalm 36 wants to call it out? Praise is a valid option. It's a great option because of mainly verses 5 through 9, just extolling the grandeur and the greatness of God. However, it doesn't start off that way, so I put it in personally in a different category. What other category is a possibility, you think? Pilgrim, that's the one I put in. Because there's wisdom thematic too. There's a wisdom thematic elements in it, and it focuses on the story of the ungodly, and it actually is ungodly. Notice that wicked, it's the same word, wicked and ungodly. Wicked here, ungodly in Psalm 1. And so you have that way of the wicked that's described. This is the outcome for them. Look, they're here, they're collapsed. They're caught in the riptide. They're never going to rise again. That's what you'll see for the wicked. But look at those who put their trust in God. Look at that conclusion. So I put it in the pilgrim category because of those details. So what stands out to you in the song? Names of God, questions, kind of repetition or poetic form, significant patterns that stand out to you. Yes, what's the first thing? Yeah. We have a lot of similes whenever you see the word like or as often. That's an indicator of similes, and that's making some kind of comparison. Instead of saying something so oblique as, the Germanic building, it gives you some kind of description that helps you kind of fill in some details. And so we don't normally talk like this in conversation, but in poetry, it adds a whole new level of depth and discovery with reading. So she mentioned that his righteousness is like great mountains. How in the world is righteousness like great mountains? Well, Paul was risen before you dwell on that. And so when you dwell on what righteousness is, like great mountains, in the context, there's a lot of food for thought in that category. Fatness of the house. Haven't seen you eat fat mountains. So what is that? Fatness is actually not a simile, it's a metonymy. In other words, it's a word that's taken to mean something that is a part of something that it's talking about. So what's the fatness? It's connected to the offerings. The fat of the offering is the best that you can give. And with a peace offering, you would take part of that peace offering, Thanksgiving offering, and you would take it back, and you'd have peace and invite guests to enjoy this meal with you because of what God has done and His blessing, and you want to share His great wonders to others. And so the fatness there is just wrapping up that whole image in one word, the fatness of the house. It's a lot simple, but it sure is packed with a lot of imagery. And so some great imagery in this song for sure. And we'll cover more of that probably as we go through the mountain in detail. Moving next, another observation from Psalm 36. Yes. Yeah. No, that's great. You see really the center of the universe for the ungodly and the center of the universe for the righteous. The center of the universe for the ungodly is living themselves. They're unprotected. They're sitting there plotting what they're going to do. It's described as a mischief, but and it is essentially the same word as iniquity, but it's not like they're devious, bloodthirsty cutthroats that are plotting how they're going to assassinate the next victim. They're just busy about their own life and plotting what they're going to do next in independence of God. And so that center of the universe for the ungodly is painted vividly as themselves. The center of the universe for the righteous is not themselves, it's God. And that's why you go from the ungodly to God, then to what the godly are desired. I think that's why we have this format of Psalm 36, and it's very helpful. With your observation. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. The description of the ungodly just flows in some kind of progression that we'll see in verse 2. It really starts off with just you're able to recognize the ungodly by their speech. But then in verse 3, you have four lines that really stack upon themselves. The words of his mouth, he left off to be wise, he devised mischief, and then he said of himself, if that is not good, if for it not good. Those last four lines are really the ones that are stacked, and you see the progression that moves along there. He's disconnected from wisdom, he's devising mischief. Then beyond that, the next layer is I put determined in his will. He's set in his ways. He's set in his ways. He's established the direction, the compass of his life, and it just gets to the point where they're not going to anything else that's going on around them as to whether it's going to be. They really just don't care. They're apathetic to anything. And so they're willing to tolerate a lot of different things to occur. But what we've seen is that the pursuit of holiness is something that we are called to as believers, which necessitates intervention in wickedness. You say, well, by what principle? Matthew 5. You are a city on a hill whose light should not be hidden. You should be as obvious as a city on a hill that's lit in the darkness of night as a safe haven for those who are in the turmoil. You are the salt of the earth. You're to be this influence in the society that says, no, I'm not going to tolerate evil. And so you see the contrast of the ungodly versus the godly. And that's the characteristic that's represented in Psalm 36. So, good observation there. What will be next? The words repeated that you notice. I'll start working my way through the psalm, and if you get something else and you're ready to chime in, then you just raise your hand, and I'll hold up and give you an opportunity to comment. But as I'm looking through this psalm, I tell you that when I'm studying, I'm looking at words that they come out at the as something that probably is significant to the song. And so what are those words? We see the word wicked and the word heart. Both appear at the beginning and the end of the song. You have wicked in verse number 1, and then again in verse 11. So you see that the action of the wicked, but then you're going to see God's response to the wicked on behalf of those who are just or pursuing righteousness. Then you see the word heart. It's in verse 1, and then also in verse 10. So I'm thinking through this, and I'm looking at it and saying, okay, so those two words stand out as probably bookends in the song. Let's see how that plays out. Other words that are repeated a few times, the word iniquity. If you're looking at it in English, which absolutely are, the word iniquity appears 3 times. It's 2 different words in the original language. The first time you see iniquity in verse 2 is a specific word that's really used for the description of what's consumed Sodom and Gomorrah. You're dealing with the word there with iniquity. That's something that is characteristic of those who are carrying on in life as they see fit. Then you see the word iniquity, and it's also translated as mischief. Iniquity in verse number 3, mischief in verse number 4, and iniquity in verse number 12. All of these uses are another word that just really is kind of emphasizing not gross, evil, debauchery. It's really just that kind of independence from God. And the word here, for, if I remember right, the one in verse 2, really has the idea of like just unshackling yourself from any kind of authority. And so just saying, God's not my authority, I'm going to do what I want. It's a rebellion, it's a revolt. And that's what you see characterized with the godly in this song. Mercy and loving kindness, that came up 3 times in this song. And that's significant for us to dwell on when we study through this. Significant words, the name of God, the name of the Lord, used many times, and just some other things that will come across as we continue through the study. The song describes the nature of wickedness, then it goes to God's characteristics, and then it's going to end with the assurance that the righteous can have based on who God is. So the psalmist is distinguishing between the ungodly and what really clarifies who the ungodly are. Now, this is an important principle that I have been able to dwell on with some of the study on holiness, but also preparing for the series of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. This is very, very critical. In Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther, you'll see it when I teach through it on Sunday morning. They all have different oddities in those books that really boil down to the Jews made lines in their society or in the building project or whatever. And the issue is not whether or not those lines being drawn were right or wrong. It was really about how they arrived at those lines. For example, there were people that hadn't been in captivity, were Samaritans, so they had intermarried with Gentiles, come to Zerubbabel and say, we'd like to build with you. And Zerubbabel throws them out and says, you have no part with us, we don't want to see you again. And so he turns them out on their ear. And so you look at that and you say, well, that's a little harsh. Well, yeah, it is. And it really stirs up a lot of problems for the Jews in Jerusalem because those people that were turned out now write to the Persian king and make up a story. And the Persian king sends a letter back and says they need to stop building this project because I'm not so sure about it. And causes a lot of issues for Israel. So was Zerubbabel wrong for saying you don't have part with us? No, I'm not saying he's wrong, but how did he arrive at that distinction? How did he arrive at that distinction? I think what you're seeing is the seed of Pharisaical thought in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah and even with Esther. And the Pharisaical thought was there's a you and me. There's an us and there's a them. And the them, well, they're just them because they're not like us. But that's not the way the psalm is going to describe how you make a distinction between the ungodly and the godly. The distinction between the ungodly and the godly is not based on, well, that's the ungodly because they don't do what I do. You aren't the criteria of what makes the distinction between the ungodly and the godly. What is the criteria? God. God is the criteria. Either you pursue God with all your heart, and it's all about Him, or you disregard it. That's the criteria of the ungodly versus the godly. Now, there's a lot of godly that are pursuing their own agenda as independently as the ungodly. There's a lot of pragmatic Christianity, quote and unquote Christianity. And so the psalm does a really great work here of saying, hey, there's the ungodly. We're going to compare with the ungodly. We're going to compare them with the true criteria, and that's God. Okay. How are they interacting with God? They disregard Him. How do the ones who desire godliness, how do they interact? They run to Him with all their heart because they have no hope of God. That's the distinctive. That's the criteria. And so the psalmist is going to highlight God's mercy, faithfulness, righteousness, His judgments. The Lord is the life and life. He preserves those who regard Him eternally. The psalmist prays for the Lord to lead the righteous into His goodness and to look at the ungodly from advancing or acting. Okay, so looking at these verses, breaking it down. Verse number 1. Again, I hope you read verse 1 and you have questions, because if you don't, maybe I'm just not as sharp, but the wording really threw me. Does the wording throw you in verse 1? We'll just read it. The transgression of the wicked saith within my heart. Does that not strike you? So I'm reading that and saying, so how the transgression talk, and what is it saying in David's heart? Because this is Psalm of David. What is really going on here? Okay. This is one of those moments where I dig into the word and really work on parsing things out here. The word "say" is not your normal word for just talk, like we all know now. It's actually the word that's used that the prophets will use when they say, I have an oracle, a message from God. And so what verse 1 is saying, if I can re-order it into a plainer English, what verse 1 is saying is there is an oracle of the Lord regarding the transgressor. Is really what verse 1 is saying. And that oracle is breaking forth from my heart. And here's what I'm writing about. Here's what I'm telling you is going on about the transgressor. The way of transgression is the object of this oracle. God has given this oracle. And so that's an important thing. David has a divine revelation within his heart about those who break the rules, revealing their fearless nature. Look at the second part of verse 2. This is the summary of the ungodly. There is no fear of God before His eyes. And this is not your word for fear as in reverential awe of God and just some kind of suspense as to how terrific God is. No, this is the fear and dread, shaking your boots, He can kill me kind of fear. The ungodly do not possess that fear. And you're going to see the characteristics of it as it follows throughout the Psalms here. Usually, somebody said that usually the phrase oracle is followed by a subject or source, so it's oracle of the Lord. But in this case, the object is said and not the subject, so it's oracle about transgression. So what we can assume is that this is God's revelation as to what happens to the ungodly. Well, let's look at some of these scripture statements about the ungodly. Verse 2, for He flattereth himself in his own eyes until his iniquity be found faithful. The word flattering has the idea of to smooth something out. To smooth something out. I don't want to acknowledge all the things I did under my covers if I'm a little child cleaning my room. So I'm going to do my best to smooth all the wrinkles and all the creases and all the lumps and bumps of everything I did under the covers of my bed so that no one can see. And if they can't see it, then it doesn't really exist. That's the idea of what's going on here with the wicked. He is smoothing over everything in his life so that he doesn't have to acknowledge how wicked he really is. The idea here is facing up to God, and they're able to live without fear of God by suppressing the idea of God and smoothing out their iniquity. Suppress the idea and smooth out the iniquity, and all of a sudden they're able to carry on without anything on their conscience. They're not worried about what anyone else thinks. They're not worried about what God thinks because they've done everything to eliminate that from the equation. And so they use this to maintain a positive self-image. And by doing this, they're not aware or recognizing the severity of their own actions. If they were to see the iniquity, they would find it to be hateful. If they actually stop suppressing and smoothing things over, they would actually realize, I'm a wicked, vile individual. But they don't want to do that, so they can avoid. So it's a Romans 1, isn't it? It's a Romans 1 truth. The suppressing of the idea of God, holding it under, like if we fall under the top of the full surface. You can hold it down, but it's going to pop up eventually, and then you're not going to deal with it. But God's much more stable than we've done. And so, on the other hand, those who have honestly and humbly recognized who God is in front of that fear of God, knowing they've admitted their sin and that they're seeking forgiveness, they're ones who are in a whole different category. So that's what Psalm 1 and 2 is already setting up for us. This is where the ungodly are, and by virtue of establishing that He's consistent, these are characteristics of the opposite that you should be noticing here in the next few verses of this psalm. So, what are the characteristics of the ungodly? I think verse 3 is almost like ripping the bandage off. You've been hiding this? Well, no longer. I'm going to expose it for what it is. And like, ouch, the description here of wickedness is severe. Verse 3, the words of the mouth are iniquity and deceit, and left off to be wise. Good. Verse 4, he finds that he finds mischief upon his bed. He said to himself in a way that is not good. He abhorreth not evil. So I have here that the psalmist reveals the nature of the wicked. Their speech betrays them. And the word here for iniquity in verse 3 is troubling. Troubling so bad that it almost makes you feel like you're going to die. This is the same word. Remember when Rachel had Benjamin, and she dies. You remember that she did not name him Benjamin. If you remember, she named him Ben-Oni, which is the word here for iniquity, which means troubling. Well, she's going to die in childhood. And so she called him the son of my trouble. Well, Dad didn't want to leave that name, so he changed it to Benjamin, which made the son of my right hand. And so what you have here is this stirring up. I put down as the dissonance of the words of the wicked. The wicked, when they talk, there's just a troublesome, there's a dissonance. There are certain individuals where when they get the microphone in the public forum, you just cringe because you just feel like things aren't right. That's the dissonance of their God. Also, you'll see that they are they're deceitful, and so that's the other word there, just dishonest. The four characteristics flow here: the disregard of wisdom. I think I read through those earlier. The design wickedness, they determine their way against God, and they delight in wickedness. The result, though, is given to us again in verse 3. It's really that he has left off to be wise and to do good. In other words, because they want nothing to do with the way of God, it's impossible for them to arrive at anything that's good. It's impossible. Isn't that what we see in Scripture? The righteousness of my own creation are filthy rags. There's none that do it good. Paul quotes Psalm 36 heavily in Romans 3. If you look at it, there's none that seeketh after God. They don't fear him. They don't want to do anything. They can't do anything that's good. Psalm is really pulling from Psalm 36. Or Paul is really pulling from Psalm 36 heavily. And so all of these descriptions point out that these individuals are truly treasured up the wrath of God. You can try to ignore God. You can try to suppress his identity and to smooth out your iniquity so that you don't have to be reckoned with. But there is a day of reckoning. So the first four verses establish this identity of the ungodly. Now, the beauty of this song is right here in verses 5 to 9. And it's really stupendous. Verse 5, thy mercy, O Lord, is in the heavens. Thy faithfulness reaches something unto the clouds. Thy righteousness is like the great mountains. Thy judgments are a great deep. I was half expecting somebody to say, there's a pattern here, there's parallel, because we have each of those are very structured. Thy something is like this. Thy something like, we got the simile, but as far as that rigidness in the poetry, what you have here are 4 layers of God's wonders that the psalmist wants to extol. His mercy, faithfulness, righteousness, and judgments. And the pictures here are just amazing. That his mercy reaches or is in the heavens. What the psalmist is really trying to help you kind of imagine is God's mercy is unsurpassable. It's unsurpassable. You, from this culture, like nowadays we shoot rockets or want to make a tourist industry where you can, after the sinking of that with deep sea vessel, I'm not really interested in going anywhere. We could shoot out from Earth beyond certain levels of our atmosphere. Man, isn't that incredible? But think about it from their perspective. They are on land, and the best you can get is go to the highest hill that you're going to find. And that's as close to the heavens as you're going to get. They know there are stars that are just way out there. They see them. They see the celestial bodies. They see so many things. And God's mercy is like so far out there, you can't even find the end of it. That's what God's mercy is. Oh, what a neat picture. It's going to be something that we'll revisit in just a few moments. The second image here, that faithfulness reaches up to the clouds. We just see that unsearchable. For them, clouds, like where these clouds come from, where do they go? How do they come? How do they wander through the atmosphere? That faithfulness is something that we can't even understand how you operate, but Lord, you're always there. You're always in operation. Your faithfulness is there. The clouds bring rain. The clouds bring cover and shade. God, your faithfulness is such an encouragement. The next picture, that righteousness is like the great mountain. Pretty neat imagery here, because the word great is not the normal word for great. The normal word for great is kicking the goal. In other words, this one is actually the word for God. So if we translate this literally, it would say, thy righteousness is like the God mountain, or the God mountains. What is that? What I think the psalmist is saying here is, you see mountains. Well, God's righteousness is like no mountain you've ever seen. It's a mountain that's underneath you. You're never going to be able to conquer that mountain. Men today, because of advanced technology and all the clothing and all the gear that they can take, they can climb mountains. And they can climb some very difficult, high places in this world. But back in this day, that's not something they can do anymore. And so from their perspective, the best mountain you can climb, that's nothing like God mountains. God mountains are way one, and that's God's righteousness. You're never going to get to the tippy top of that. That's righteousness. That's something else. The next image, that judgments are a good thing. In other words, the wondrous workings of God are so baffling. I can't even begin to comprehend how is God made, like the those would say in the prophets, and the heights have, and the waters flow from sky to sea, and then are back in the sky again. And life happens, and seasons go from one to the other. How are God's ways even? How are you even able to map out God's ways? It's just impossible. So beautiful imagery in this section. This is the wonders of God. These qualities exemplify that He is able to, on the most basic level, preserve life of man and peace. You're able to see all of these wonders, His mercy, faithfulness, righteousness, judgment, active in that the most basic of ways He preserves the life of man and peace. Even ones that are unconscious of his existence or are willingly ignoring his existence, are still sustained by his wondrous work. So, where does this lead us to? Verse 7, 8, I believe, are a mirror of those very four lines. And really, I love looking with this kind of filter in place. He's going to mention again loving kindness. And then everything else kind of follows in where you can put right alongside of the same line of God's goodness and see a beautiful image of how you and I interact. Yes, God's mercy is unsearchable. Yes, God's faithfulness is, unsurmountable. We can't even understand it. Yes, God's righteousness and his judgments are unimpeachable and unfathomable. But look at how those who seek him are able to find him. Is what verses 7 and 8 really take a picture of. Verse 7, how excellent is the kindness of God. The word excellent there is a word that just points out the priceless treasure that inspires awe. Well, a priceless treasure is something that I see, I'm able to appreciate. God's mercy is something that has been bestowed. Yes, it's wondrous. It seems so far beyond anything we could possibly find the extremities of. But God's mercy is something I personally treasure. The next verse, therefore the children of men put their trust under the shadow of thy wings. I put that in parallel with the faithfulness reaching up to the bottom. What I see is that it's unfathomable faithfulness, light as a cloud, is the shadow of these things, the light will come. So what I see is just an inverse of the typical picture. Often when we talk about clouds, we can talk about low-rate clouds, gray clouds, storm clouds, things that strike fear. We have quite a lot of clouds going through the day with some unusual rumbles of thunder, and I just say the slowest said, well, we don't lose power because that when the weather gets all weird, we're going to lose power probably. And thankfully we did. But usually clouds can be interpreted as bringing something ominous. But what we have here is the parallel of no, God, these clouds are bringing the faithfulness of God. And wow, under the shade of those clouds, running the reflection of the rain. What a wonderful thing it is to appreciate who God is. Verse 8. Verse 7. No, verse 8. They shall be abundantly satisfied with the fatness of thy house. Well, where is this fatness of his house? Thy righteousness is like a great mountain. Now, so there's a lot of parallels. The great mountain. Where is the temple in this Jewish culture? It's on top of the mountain. God's mountain. This is where God put his name. What's happening? There's sacrifices. There's peace. There's access to God. Yes, his righteousness is like a God mountain that you're never going to find peace of, but because he condescends to men of God's faith, I now have access to community. God is super in his righteousness. Because of his righteousness, I don't dare have access to him because of my sinfulness. God needs some help. Verse 8, second phrase, thou shalt make them drink from the river of thy pleasures. Judgments are often things that we think of as heavy and not pleasurable. But what we understand from Scripture is how I love the law. We understand that God's judgments are something that can give us kind of pleasure. So his righteousness is like a highway from the mountain of God where the bountiful peace is shared. His judgments flow into rivers. We might not be able to understand all the motions of God, but what he allows to be channeled in our direction become our refreshing pleasure to us. Some interesting pictures here in verse number 9. He says, for me is the fountain of life, and thy light shall receive light. The word pleasure, is the word Psalm 36 tells us how we come to find life. And that's in God. He's the fountain of life. He's the fixture of life. In God is everything that you possibly need. You can enjoy utter bliss and joy if you would reckless abandon pursue God in mind. God will richly give you all things to enjoy that He intends for you to have by His mercy. So some amazing pictures there. You come to verse 10, where you have the prayer of the righteous. And the prayer of the righteous begins with, "O continue, Lord, allow it to wash over me constantly. Draw me into this wonder of your grace, mercy, and righteousness, your judgments. Lord, why would I not want these things? Because of how good they are to continue to draw me into this." In other words, God is so wonderful, verses 5 and 6 and 7, 5 and 6. But yet He's so accessible, verses 7 and 8. So verse 10, so Lord, help me to have the elevation that allows me to continue to draw closer and closer and closer to you. The prayer of the righteous is both proactive and protective. Verse 10, we see the proactive. Lord, I'm asking you, do this, bring me, draw me, help me to experience that loving kindness. He desires that you be led, much like this is positive to the companion of the negative in the Word, and you be not into temptation. This one saying, make me into the wonders of forgiveness. He's going to really insist that these characteristics that we mentioned before in the psalm are what he's emphasizing. How do I go? Verse 10 points out loving kindness and righteousness. Why are they those two? You've already mentioned before. Well, I believe that those two are mentioned because they are the first of those two couplets. You have the first couplet is mercy and faithfulness, and the second couplet is righteousness and judgment. And so those together would make all that some kind of deities, which is basically combining. His faithful love is what that's really pointing out. His righteous judgments are actually combining. And so in verse 10 he's saying, Lord, all of your goodness, may your mercy and your righteousness be something that I get to do. These characteristics are the ones that we appreciate God's goodness as it is. Verse 11, let not the foot of pride come against me, and let not the hand of the wicked move. And so this is the protective part of the proactive and protective. The protective is asking God that when God would be restrained, that they would be prevented from the invasion or their intention against this rest. Lord, don't let the foot, I see the foot as that trampling upon to lay claim to the territory, digging into my life. When you read about Abraham walking all over Canaan, the promised land that God is going to give him in his seed, and he builds altars here on every mountain top. So what's going on? Abraham is actually claiming this territory. He's not going to have it for 400 years before his descendants return by the mighty hand of God. But Abraham has walked that territory. That foot's work is important. Joshua 1. What does God tell Joshua? Everywhere you put your foot is going to be like that. The mentality of this culture is where your foot goes, you home. And so the psalmist is saying, God, don't let the wicked have their foot of arrogance or pride in my life. Because they don't know you. I want you to you're the that I want to be foiled. And then the idea of the hand is just that craftiness of wickedness and wanting to do something wrong. Verse 12, we see there are the workers of iniquity fallen, and they are cast down, and shall not be able to rise. And so, like I said at the beginning, this is the conclusion. You see the ungodly beginning, verse 1 through 4, and so where are the ungodly? Where are they? Well, the reach of the evil doing is limited, just like the waves are on the shore. They are collapsed and caught and ripped out. So you see now We had an option where I could say, Lord, really need that word near. Near, my God, to be near, near, near. That's what they've gotten. But the ungodly, they want to know. Consider the law. Suppress and screw over. And what's that going to do? They may have different experiences in this life. They may have some goodness of their own creation, but it's all limited and it can never pass that mountain. Never can. Sorry. But the step on it. You don't have access. Why? What is the distinctive? The distinctive is not my actions versus that ungodly person. The distinctive is purely, Lord, I confess my sin, I see my sins, and I receive my sins. And because of that, he says, I like some persons. And y'all were straight to the fight. So this was a rare opportunity for me to share all my stuff. Okay? And so, no more than that. In the future, y'all have to talk. Okay? All right. Let's go. Dear Lord, thank you so much for these wonderful truths that you take through what the psalmist says. Lord, your mercy is so really, it's like the government's in this stuff. And we step back and say, actually, you know, for you, you love us with such good. Lord, you are good to us. Tell us what reaches above the clouds and how you're giving us paths and clothes in our life and in certain ways where we totally recognize and appreciate how faithful you are. Lord, your righteousness is like a mountain that's impossible to climb, impossible to walk around, to understand the scope and breadth and height of. We want